Welcome back. You're listening to Houston Real Estate Radio. I'm your host, Shanna Register, and every week we bring you news and information you can use that pertains to real estate. So we talk about all kinds of things related to real estate. Today, we're making it a little bit different. We're going to talk a little bit about the flooding issues, and I know we're not having any of those right now, thank goodness. We hadn't even had any bad hurricanes, which is really nice so far, knock on wood. But this segment, I've got Stephen Costello here. He is actually our flood czar. He works for the mayor, and as flood czar, does a lot of really interesting things for the city, and kind of a newly created position because of all the issues that we had back in around tax season. We had all the flooding going on, and so I think this mayor has really wanted to address some of those issues. So we're excited to have Stephen Costello joining us today. So welcome back. You've been here before.
Thank you. I have. Thank you.
Yeah, I know. We interviewed you when you were running for mayor.
Correct. You did.
So tell us about this flood czar position. How did this come about?
Well, it's interesting. When the mayor first created the position, it was really a position, and my official title is called the Resilient Officer.
That doesn't sound nearly as cool, though.
I know. And it started out because Mayor Parker was pursuing funding through the Rockefeller Foundation for 100 Resilient Cities. It's a program they have. And then you fast forward to 2015 when we had the flood for Memorial Day, and then you fast forward again with the April of flooding this year. And the mayor called me and said, "We want you to be the resilient officer." And the first thing I said to him is, I said, "Well, what does that mean?" And so he described the foundation to me. And then we had those back-to-back floods this year, which was both Tax Day and Memorial Day. And he called me and said, "I want you to be the flood czar." And so I said, if this is what you want me to be, it's like being called when the president asked you to come work for them. I said, "I'll come work for you." So I left my firm to come work and work on flooding and drainage issues, which is really what I've been studying for many, many years as my own profession. So I'm excited about helping him. I'm excited about helping the city. And you're right, this is the very first time that an administration has identified a specific position focusing on flooding and drainage.
Well, I know there are a lot of people out there who are glad that the mayor is focusing on this big issue because it's affected so many homes and so many people's lives. The flooding is one thing, but then you think about the time off work and all the other issues that come with it. There's just a lot involved when you start having large neighborhoods, large areas just covered in water. So where do you begin?
So it's interesting. When I first said to the mayor, I have no staff and I have no money. How am I going to get this accomplished?
Good luck.
He kind of laughed and he said, "But on your entry card to the city hall, it says Office of the Mayor. You speak on my behalf." And really what my role is more of a coordinator, one-man think tank to try to figure out ways where we can expedite and get projects done. The mayor has said publicly on a number of occasions that we are never going to prevent flooding, but what we can do is mitigate for it. Mm-hmm. So one of the programs that I'm working on is working with Harris County Flood Control District to help expedite some of their flood reduction program projects, which are all big federal projects.
So they've had these projects outlined for a while that need to be done, but they're not being done because of funding. Is that right?
Right. Some of their programs are 20 years old. And a lot of it has to do with the federal process in terms of authorization to proceed, and then it boils down to actual funding and how they build these projects. And so what we're looking at doing is helping Flood Control District with an influx of money into their projects, and sort of acting on behalf of the federal government. And then once Flood Control starts to build these projects, they will then send the bill to the federal government, and once the federal government reimburses them, they will reimburse us. So We're sort of trying to collapse their schedules is what we're trying to do.
Okay, so that's as far as the flood control district is concerned. What other areas do you work on?
So the very first thing I did when I got into the position was I asked Public Works to plot out a map of the city of Houston and then plot me by our records how many houses have flooded and where they're located. Mm-hmm. And when you look at this map, you'll see over half the homes are flooded or half flooded are not anywhere near a bayou. And it's because of poor infrastructure. Okay. And if you think about the city of Houston, we are not really an old city, but we are an old city in some respects. And so we have infrastructure that is inadequate. And so some of these areas are either in neighborhoods that have roadside ditches. Some of these areas are in curb and gutter neighborhoods that have small, old, decay infrastructure. And so my job is to look at these areas and develop a program to where we can attack these areas on the frontal side and to try to reduce some of the flooding potential in those areas.
And where does that funding come from?
So that funding is really, I call it a modified maintenance program. So a lot of the activities can be done quickly by our maintenance departments or having contractors on call. And that money will come from one of the enterprise funds or through the general revenue source. So it's something that I've developed a program, and now the mayor is trying to figure out how to fund it.
Okay, so much like the pothole issues, this is just something else that's kind of on the table that that systems that are already in place are working on.
Yeah, and it's interesting you said the pothole program, because how visual the program is really important. A lot of people look at the city and say, well, what are you doing with our tax dollars? And this is a good way to be able to touch a lot of neighborhoods with smaller projects to get things done, to show that we're actually spending their money on some drainage-related projects.
Yeah. So a lot of the money is going to come from federal, so you work on that. And then you're trying to kind of reallocate, kind of rework some of the budget here in Houston to be able to accommodate these maintenance projects. Is that right?
Yes. Yes. Okay. And so those are the two programs that I've been working on since I went to City Hall back in the end of May.
Okay.
Now, people will say, okay, well, what's next? And so some of the federal projects, they terminate somewhere in watersheds where we still have flooding upstream. And so my role will be to look at areas in those other watersheds and say, okay, how can we improve the drainage there? And try to formulate some programs to where I can get both agencies working together. For instance, looking at areas that maybe we can repurpose a golf course or put detention inside a golf course without changing the golf course itself. Or I'm also looking at maybe redoing a landfill site. We have existing landfill sites that we could mine, they call it mining, where we can actually just dig it up and recycle some of the material, relocate some of the other material. Now I have a big hole in the ground that I can have as detention.
Okay, just hold the water.
Yes.
Very good. All right, and you're going to make some of it flow out better to the ocean and make some of it go in some large storage pots around the city. Well, that sounds good.
Right. There's still other issues that we have to do. And one of the things I told the mayor is we have to gain public trust. There is an underlying tone here throughout the community that they don't trust in local government, which I was really surprised about as a prior elected official. You know, I understand the Washington sentiment. I understand the trust and lack of trust in Austin, but I always felt like the local dollars were being spent wisely. And if we can touch more people with some of these activities, and if we can help more people with helping out with flood control district, I think the community will realize that we're trying to work on their behalf and spend their money wisely. And that's really a big deal.
Where do you think that mentality came from?
Well, it's hard to say. I mean, it's just a lot of it is poor communication. And I say this jokingly when I'm out in the community because I am an engineer. I blame my own profession for that. Engineers are not very good communicators. What we are is problem solvers. And so we need to do a better job of communicating to the public when we come into an area, what we're going to do, why we're going to do it, and when we're going to do it. And sometimes we should be asking their opinion because people have opinions. Whether they're right or wrong, at least we've given them an opportunity to
hear them.
Please hear them, and then also address their issues and then move on from there.
What do you, as far as the issues that people had during the immediate flood, like quick reaction to flooding, are you implementing anything? I know that there were a lot of boats that went out and kind of rescue people from their homes. There were a lot of people who wanted to stay in their homes, and there were different people who went and delivered food and things to them. Are you working on any of that, kind of the infrastructure for quick reaction to flooding?
No, I do not get involved in what we call emergency operations.
Okay, so that falls under...
That's a total different department. Okay. One of the things we are looking at that a lot of people are not aware of is the fact that, once an area is identified as a disaster area, a national disaster area, there are other funds that come to us. So right now, we've just recently gotten money from HUD for disaster relief, and it's called Community Block Grant Money DR, which means disaster relief. And we got $66 million just recently from HUD. There are certain
Can that go back into the budget for this
Well, what it is
program?
it's primarily used for capital projects or for buyout. It has to be within areas that flooded. And it has to be about 70% of it has to be in lower and moderate income areas, and then 30% can be outside of that. And so, that's as a result of the Memorial 15 flood. We'll have another tranche of money as a result of the 16 floods as well. And so we're working now through the federal government for that. those are some of the opportunities for us. Like, for instance, what we're doing now, we're elevating houses with some of this disaster relief money.
Like literally, like
literally
on stilts?
elevating houses.
Okay.
And in fact, the first tranche of houses that we're working on, we have 42 houses we're going to be elevating. We have an application into FEMA for another 39. Now, this is money that flows from FEMA to the TCEQ and then to us. And so it's a fairly expensive route to take when you're elevating houses. But if you think about it, what we don't want people to do is we don't want people moving out of their communities.
Yeah.
And what we'd like to do is, first of all, we'd like to figure out how we can reduce the flood
Sure.
potential as much as we
Minimize
can.
it.
And then in areas where they're going to still be in a floodplain, those are areas where we should be focusing raising houses.
All right, very good. We appreciate it. Stephen Costello, our flood czar for Houston. We appreciate you coming in and talking to us today. I know you
Thank
love
you
that.
so
You're
much.
like cringing at that title. I love it.
Thank you.
All right, we appreciate you coming in. You can find all of today's show over on HoustonRealEstateRadio.com in video, so you can watch it and listen to it. We'll be right back after a word from our sponsors here on Houston Real Estate Radio.
RREA Media has an exciting new product available to companies and organizations who are teaching classes and want to offer those classes online. Introducing Easy Distance Learning. Easy Distance Learning is a video-based distance learning system that allows companies and organizations to leverage their existing classroom content into a broader reach and increased revenues. Did you know that the rate of growth of distance learning is 10 times that of classroom education? And 66% of chief academic officers think distance learning is critical to their long-term strategy. Right now, 33% of higher education students are taking at least one online class. Companies and organizations not offering a distance alternative to in-class instruction risk being left behind. Video-based distance learning has three basic components: classroom capture, post-production, and content distribution. Easy Distance Learning is a comprehensive and modular system that covers all three components that can help your organization with what you are missing in offering a quality and convenient online learning experience. You choose the parts you need help with. Easy Distance Learning offers another revenue stream, a broader reach of your existing content, and a professional presentation with a great learner experience. Contact us today for a free estimate and see how Easy Distance Learning can take your company or organization to the next level.